Starting the recording. What's up, everyone? Thanks for tuning in. We are going to do some development on space, or renamed from Space Truck and Starlight Express today. I have Michael with me, and we're going to be taking a look at UI to start. I have myself a little handy-dandy checklist here, and I think what I want to start with is the interactable UI. So, Michael, I'll take you through how everything is set up so far. Um, so I'm planning on making this more of like a devlog so that people can watch the progress.
Yeah,
Um,
sounds good.
so let's catch people up. So in the scene right now, under the hangar, lounge, and office, we just have these are all static props. We have our main UI manager, and inside of this it's just a singleton. Do do do. Not being able to use both monitors is going to be weird. All it does is it holds a reference to each of the individual canvases for the things that we want to interact with. It creates the singleton. When we start, we turn all the canvases off. If one of the canvases is capable of being interacted with, so if you're inside of one of the colliders, we'll show it. Or if you hit the exit button, we will turn all the canvases off. And then when we show a canvas, we just pick the right enum and we turn that correct one on. So the way they work, for example, we have the bed here, and the couch bed under it has a script called the UI activator. And it has a box collider set to a trigger. So if you're inside of this box, um, you will be able to activate the bed UI. And if we open up the UI activator, all we do is we hold the type to it, and when the trigger enters, we tell the UI manager that you're allowed to hit E and open it. And when you leave, you are no longer allowed to open the UI. So what we want to do, so like I'll show you for example, if I walk up to the terminal over here, this computer guy, and we hit E, the UI will open, and then we hit escape to close. So right now, the bed has a big sleep button that doesn't do anything. So I talked to Stefano, our game designer, and basically what we want to do is we want to actually rid ourselves of the UI, and we actually want to just start the day-night like sleep cycle when you hit E on the bed. So we actually don't need to pop up um, any UI. So I think instead of the UI canvas for this, so we have UI. Notice where did I put select asset? Prefabs, UI, office interaction, bed canvas. Okay, so the bed canvas doesn't need a button on it. He said he wanted it to like the screen to fade to black.
Mhm.
So I think what we can just do is on this guy there's an image. There's currently no sprite put in it, so we need to put just up the alpha. So I think what we'll do is we'll just animate the screen going to black by fading the screen to black, and then after a couple seconds we'll fade it back to light. So let's scripts UI office, and then we'll add a new script called bed canvas UI. And inside of here, all we will do is when this guy is enabled, I guess we should probably set like a timer of some sort. So we'll be like, we'll just call it timer. And then usually you want to have some sort of constant. The constant. So we have like constants files for different things, but I think the constant actually fits best in the UI here. So we could say time to sleep. So on enable. I guess on enable we don't even need to. Okay, we'll do it this way. So the timer, we need to add time.delta time. And then we basically say if the timer is greater than or equal to the time to sleep, we exit the menu. And as we're adding to the timer, we can basically say if the timer is greater than time to sleep divided by 2, we will, how do I want to explain this? Okay, so we want to change the opacity of the image, so we actually need a reference to the image.
Hmm.
And so we will get that. Image isn't default, so you have to import unityengine.ui, and now we have access to image. Then I usually put any references to outside things at the top of the script, and then inner variables. These should actually all be private. And u should be a constant. And we'll say it's like 4 seconds. Okay, so so on awake, we only want to do it once. We will say the background image is equal to get component image. And let's go ahead and, before we forget, let's go ahead and attach the script to the bed canvas. Shoop. I believe in you, Unity. Come on. All right. There we go. And I like to usually drag these things up top just so I don't have to scroll down for them. Okay, so this background image, usually if there's going to be anything that I'm going to be setting at runtime, I put a header here that says set at runtime. So basically what that header does is, you'll see here, it says set at runtime here. So that way when I'm looking at the variables, when I'm trying to make sure that everything's set up correctly, if there's a bug, I know that I don't have to touch this. This is set at runtime, right? I don't think we'll need an on enable. I was thinking we would set like a boolean, but the update isn't going to run until it's enabled anyways, so...
Okay. Yeah, I was worried that you'd walk into the box of the bed and just suddenly go to sleep with update.
So the bed canvas UI, so, come on, Unity. So the UI manager holds all the different canvases for all the UI, right? Well, the UI
Right.
manager is the only one that's toggled on. When I hit E on something, their canvas is then toggled on until I hit escape for it to go toggle off, right?
Okay.
So since the script is attached, the bed canvas UI is attached to the bed canvas, it won't be turned on until I hit E on the couch, which means the update won't run until the script is turned on, right?
Right.
Okay, so the only problem that I think we're going to run into, let me close out of all the other crap that I was working on. And Control-Shift-T allows you to search all your scripts. So I want to pull up the UI manager, and I believe if we open any of the UIs, we set the timescale to 0, so that way your player isn't still moving. Well, the problem with that is that the delta time is no longer going to be progressing as expected. So if that's the case, what's a clean way to do this? The ugly way. All right, well, we'll figure out a better way to do this in the future, but I'm just going to set time.timescale. But if the timescale is 1, the player's going to move. That's fine. Actually, that's fine. I don't like it. I don't like it. Okay, well, we'll come back to it. So if the timer is less than half, we're going to make it darker over time, right? So we'll say image, what do I call it? Background image dot color is equal to new color. That just takes in an RGB. So we will say 0, 0, 0, and then the opacity. Actually, we can do this no matter what. We just need to set the opacity inside of here. So we'll say opacity plus equals timer divided by time to sleep. I forget. Is color between 0 and 1 or 0 and 255? Oh yeah, I have an idle game open. I'll close that guy. Okay. Unity. Nope. Unity color. Aha, okay, so it's between 0 and 1, not between 0 and 255.
Mhm.
So if opacity is 1, then it will be black, non-transparent. If opacity is 0, it will be black, completely transparent, right?
Right.
So when we're, so I'm just saying that like the while we're sleeping, the time will be like 4 seconds. The first 2 seconds it will be getting darker, and the last 2 seconds it'll be getting lighter, simulating that like you went to sleep and wake up. I'm sure there's a better way to do this to make it look prettier, but this is an easy solution for now.
Mhm.
So if our timer is in the first half of how long we need to sleep, we add opacity, and we add opacity starting from whatever 0 is. So on enable, we actually want to set timer to 0, just in case we hit this UI multiple times, right? And we will also set the opacity to 0. And so we want it to be fully opaque at halftime. So we actually want to divide this guy by 2, right? So at halftime, this would equal 1, right? So if the timer is 2 and the time to sleep, yeah, so if the timer's at 2, we want the opacity to equal 1, right? So we have to cut the time to sleep in half, and then this is our like percentage of our way to halfway. That makes sense, right?
Uh, Yeah.
Yes?
Yeah.
Wait a minute. We're not adding, we're just setting it equal to.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we don't that would have been.
Oh,
So, and then on the way down, it's going to be equal to, it'll be 1, and we want to go back down. So at the end, it should end at, is it 1 minus this? I'm too lazy to do the mental math, so we'll just go check if this works. So then we'll say UI manager dot clear canvases. And we set the timescale in here? We did. Alright, let's go see what happens. Goes up, and it jumps instantly back down.
yeah.
Uh,
Because 1 minus timer divided by time to sleep would start you off at like halfway, wouldn't it?
halfway, yeah.
Yeah.
So it needs to be um, math? Math.
2 times timer?
That's what I'm, because then it'll be, no, because then it'll be like, it'll start at
Well,
4.
yeah.
Uh, does time to sleep need to be divided by, yeah, that's what it was. We divided it by 2 here, so we should be dividing it by 2 here. Question mark. Nope. Okay, so if my timer is at, okay, we'll do it like this: timer 2, 3, and 4. So if that's the case, then we will be at 1 minus 4 divided by 2. So all right, well that math doesn't work out. So we would be at, oh well, it would be at 2 here, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Okay, we'll do
So
this. We'll solve, but we'll solve by equations. So it'll be 3 divided by, we need something on this side and we need this to equal 1.5 and 0, right?
yeah.
So you need to be 2, you need to be 6, and you need to be 8. You need to be in infinity somehow. Okay, this 1 minus thing isn't strat.
Wait, doesn't that last one need to be 1?
No, because
Not
when it
not
ends,
infinity.
well, if it's 4 divided by 1, we're gonna get 4. We want the opacity to be
I'm
0.
sorry. Uh, 4. I meant that.
Well, if it's 4, then we'll get 1. Oh, no,
1 minus.
yeah, I'm really dumb. Okay. So that needs to be 1 minus, we need this thing to be equal to 0.
Yeah, so that one's the one that needs to be infinity.
I have a better way of doing this. Back to what we were doing. I think that works. The math works in my head. Now that guaranteed works. I'll explain what I did. It should be obvious, but I will explain it. Okay, cool.
Hmm.
So every frame, I just up my opacity by the difference. So it's been, a 60th of a second, and we divide that by like half of the time, right? So that's how much
Mm.
of the percentage of the opacity that we should add. So that way, if we've done this time to sleep divided by 2 times, we're at 1, and then if we do it the opposite way, we end up at 0. And then the only problem that I see now is that when you go into here, you can
Oh,
okay, so here's what we'll do. When
sleepwalking.
when you wake back up, we'll reset the player's position. Yeah?
Okay.
So I'm thinking in the not player manager, player movement, player movement, we could just add like a public static void respawn. And what's the player's starting position? 8.5, 1, negative 10. 0.8. Close enough. So you will add a private vector 3 respawn position. Oh, it copies and pastes correctly. Dope. And this is using the character controller. So I don't. Is there a character controller? Oh, it's static, so we don't have access to that. Can we use transform in static? No, we'd need an instance. Fine, 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 fine. Is there a method to just say, yo, go to the place? Nope. So we're using a character controller which like overrides physics, right?
Mhm.
Um, and I remember if you like automatically set the position instead of using, because the move method like tries to move you in the direction that you want to go, and if you run into things, it like stops you from going that way, right?
Right.
Oh, that's gonna bug me. Um, if you just manually set the position, it messes with it somehow, but I don't remember. So we're just gonna ignore the fact that that happens. And the problem now is we need an access to the player movement script inside of the UI in order to be able to call the respawn method on it. So I think what I might do is the player manager should hold a reference to that. So all the things with manager in the end of their name are the word I'm looking for, singletons.
Mm.
Okay, so this will be set at runtime. Okay, never do what I'm about to do. Okay, so what this does is it basically it's awful. It's really really awful. It traverses through all of the objects in the hierarchy until it
Mhm.
finds this script. So if you were to ever do this in something like the update loop, your game is just gonna not have a good day. But since we're doing it one time in a singleton, so this will literally only ever be called one time because a singleton persists across scenes, right?
Right.
Um, if we change scenes, this could cause an issue, but we're not there yet, so I'm not gonna think that far ahead. So in here, hmm, does delta time still progress if you set time scale to 0? Mhm. Fine, that works. So
So
we don't
fixed
have
up.
to do this. Yeah, we can just do fixed delta time, which means we should be doing this in fixed update. Hmm, good enough for me. That doesn't appear to work. All right, we will add a breakpoint. Did I did I spell it wrong? This function is called every fixed frame rate frame if the mono behavior is enabled. Mono behavior is enabled. We should be. Hmm. Okay, let's just pretend I left it at regular update. Does fixed delta time work in update? I probably should have gone and looked at that, huh? Oh, that's cool. I didn't know you could lower it. Oh, fix. I can read. I can read. There's got to be a better solution to this, but we're gonna do it this way for now. Uh, what? Okay, what are you set to? Point oh oh two. So it's 50 frames per second. So if our game is running, oh, okay, I see the problem. Okay, this is a really dumb solution. So this is happening 50 times a second, no matter what happens in the game, right?
Right.
Update is called depending on your frame rate. So it could be getting called faster and not using the right time scale, right?
Mm.
So I wonder if I could. I feel like I'm getting way out of the bounds of what I should be doing, but I'm a curious boy, so we're trying it.
All right.
All right, back to doing something else. So let's set the time scale to 1 And when we're done, this is such an awful way of doing it. I really don't want to do it this way. There's got to be a better way. So I can hit sleep and I can start running away. And when I wake back up, I get not teleported.
Hmm.
That would be because the character controller doesn't understand how to. Okay, okay, okay. New way of doing it. Yeah, I hate that. I hate that a lot. So we will say instead. Okay, yeah, I don't like doing that at all. Way better. mm, if we're paused, don't do anything. So now we got to go figure out where all we use timescale. And instead of using timescale, we just say uh, player manager dot instance dot is paused. It's true. This feels just as ugly, but at least I'm not messing with timescale and causing bugs in the future for people that don't understand how it works, I suppose. So when we launch our ship, we set timescale back to 1 because we're not. I hate doing that so much. UI manager. This isn't. So I have this hanger. I'll show you what it is. Clear canvases. Uh, where are you being called? Here, here, and here. So I think the. Hmm, it's a weird way of doing it. Alright, the last place is when this guy turns on, we mess with the time scale. When what we really want to do is say the nothing. We don't want to do anything. We want to tell it to clear. I feel like the the clear canvases should handle this for us, probably, huh? That way I don't forget to do it anywhere.
Yeah.
But that means we just have to move this up here. Because when we exit, we want to close all the canvases, which will unpause us, and then turn all of them off. That's fine. And then when we show canvases, we clear them first, right? That way when we toggle them on, we make sure all the other ones are toggled off. So we just have to make sure that when we show the canvas, we have to pause it afterwards. Which, that makes some sense. Okay, let's go back to seeing where all this was used so that we don't have to do that anymore. So we clear the canvas. If it's paused, we don't do anything. When we launch, we don't have to do that anymore because it handles it for us. And we don't have to do anything. Okay, okay, okay. If I didn't mess it up really bad, this should work just fine. Go to sleep. Wake back up. I can't move yet. I can't move yet. I can move now. If I open this guy up and I move around and then I close, I'm in the same spot. If I go to the hangar and I hit launch, the ship has no fuel. I have to fill up the ship. I have to fill up the ship. Hit launch. And ignore my amazing animations. So when I open this guy, if I use the keys, I'm not moving. Perfect. Ignore my awful ideas. Okay, so we can go to GitHub and we can commit these changes. So we can say removed timescale usage, added sleep canvas, added sleep UI. Okay, so now that I got super off track and I was supposed to give you a tutorial of how this whole thing works. So the, let me reset. I have scriptable objects that are set up that I need to undo. So player data, we need to reset your money. In missions, we need to unaccept all of them. And in ships, we have one owned. And it needs to have no fuel. Perfect, okay. So the basic gameplay flow is you walk over to... they're so bad. You walk over here, and you have two different missions that you can choose. So when you click on the mission and you hit accept, it disappears, and now you have that mission accepted. So now you go to your little terminal, and your mission is here. And now you can drag which one of the hangar nodes you want. So there is 6 hangar nodes, right? So I need to disable the other 5 because we only own one ship right now, right? And the other thing is that when I reopen this menu, the thing is still there, and I can put
Right.
2 of them in there. So that's cool. And then, so now you've assigned that mission to that ship. So now you go to the ship in the hangar, and it gives you like a little preview of it spinning around and whatnot. And so you
Mm.
fill up on your fuel. You click repair, and it doesn't do anything right now because I don't have it implemented. And then you can look at upgrades, which aren't there either. And then you hit launch, and it goes and does its mission uh, with a absolutely flawless animation.
Mm.
Um, so yeah, that's the general flow. And then what you'll do is you'll go to sleep. You'll wake up the next day. You will go check your terminal, and it'll give you like a report of like how your mission did and how much money you made and whatnot.
Right.
And then you will reassign the mission to the ship, and then you'll go send the ship off, and then you'll check if there's extra missions. So that is the core gameplay loop. And then later on, like at this table, you'll see like your pilots for your ships, like messing around. You'll have like a little vending machine here, which I think I completely broke. There's like a little mini game here. There's a jukebox. Actually, we have a cassette player right here that looks like a
Mm.
boombox that actually plays music. That Stefano made. I want to make it like more diegetic, so like you have to open up the like cassette thingy, pull
Yeah.
a cassette out, put it in, close it, hit play. Um, and then this guy right here is like your costume change thingy. There'll be a better shader on it.
Mhm.
I messed up the one that Joaquin had, but like you'll step into it and it'll like allow you to change your appearance or whatever. And then I think this little green globe right here is where if you hit E on it, it allows you to like change like the decorations around the office. So you can like change like these barrels or the color of the bed
Yeah.
or whatever. Yeah. Okay. And I believe actually I want to cleared scriptable object. What's the word I'm looking for? Completion is fine, I guess. And I think we actually merged a pull request in to my branch. We have not. I have to go approve his pull request. I can do hotkeys. And I think he just moved it to a vector 3. Yep. Review, approve. Give him the thummies. Boop. Okay, where were we? So now we need the little UI that whenever you like walk up to anything, like if I walk up to the couch, there should be like a little UI like above the player saying you can press E to sleep or whatever. So, hmm, I think that UI needs to be like it needs to be world space, right? It could probably be under the UI manager. Let's do it that way because that's how we've been doing everything so far. Create an empty object and we'll call it interaction canvas. And it needs a canvas, canvas scaler, and graphic raycaster. So the canvas is we actually want to choose the camera. No, we don't. I think it sets itself. So there's two different types of canvases. There's the screen space, which is like a HUD, and then there's world space, which is like it's actually UI like out in 3D, right? And then you have your canvas scaler, which on most canvases of mine, I scale the canvas based off of your screen size. So I set the base resolution to 1920 by 1080, and I have it scale matching the width or the height. So if you scale it on the width or the height, it will stretch or uh, shrink. And then graphic raycaster is what allows you to make input like click on things. So actually, now that I think about it, we actually don't need a graphic raycaster on this guy because you're not going to be clicking, you're going to be hitting E, right? So I've made a habit of taking all of these canvases and making them their own prefabs. So prefabs UI. We'll pull it out here. I'll have to think about a better folder structure for it. So the interaction canvas just needs um, a text box and probably an image would make sense. Yeah, that'd be fine. So if you put this into world space, if we double click, you can see it's absolutely massive, right?
Yeah.
So I think what we actually want, the easiest way to do this actually, is instead of using these via text mesh pro text, which we would have to import, because text mesh pro is freaking awesome. And we will say like, press E to sleep. And if we go back into our scene, we double click on the canvas and the text. The text isn't there. Is that because the font size is too big? Hmm. Is it because it's single-sided? No. Okay, well, fix one, we don't need any of this canvas crap. Can't remove it because canvas scalar. There we go. Ah, way too big. So you need to be like 10. And then we will center you. We'll give you a width of like 10 and a height of like 2. So if you go back, the text doesn't display because... What was the font size? Actually, here's what we can do. If we go to the asset itself in UI Manager, we can... Okay, it's not overwriting anything. Ignore me. Okay, what if we add just like a cube? How big is it relative? Okay, so it's about as big. It's not that big. Sorry, I haven't used Text Mesh Pro in a hot second, trying to figure out what in the world I'm doing wrong. How about this? What if I just add the text mesh pro text to... Okay, so what's different between you two? Your size 36 font. New strategy. Just gonna nope out on that guy. Create a new one here. Figure out about the right text size. So we'll say like press E to sleep. We'll lower the font size down to like, I don't know, 12. We can lower this guy down to like 10 by 4 by 2 by 1 by 2. We can take, oops. We can take him and we can pull him over to our character. Definitely still way too big, so we can go down to like, I don't know, 5, 4. And then center him. So now when you like walk up next to the couch, you'll get something like this. And the material that we have, I think the problem with it, is that it can be inside of walls, right?
Right.
So you basically want it to render in front of everything else, which you can usually do. I don't know how to do it in these shaders. The stencil ID. No. We're not culling, so that's not part of the problem. Oh, the textures. All right, we'll get back to it. Okay, so um, okay, so we have the text, and we'll say interaction text. I think it still might be a little big. What do you think?
Can I see it?
Oops.
Like in the scene? Yeah.
Oops. There we go. I think that's about good.
Yeah.
I guess if it's directly over the player's head, still might be a hair. I don't know. Let's hit play and see what it looks like. Eh, good enough.
Yeah.
And then later on, we'll put like an image behind it or something. I think. Change the color maybe. Yeah, good enough. We'll come back to it. Okay, so the interaction text now needs to be a prefab. So we go to prefabs UI, and we don't need U anymore. And so now we go to the UI manager. We add the interaction text as a child. And let's just make sure it still works. It does. Okay, so now what we need to do is when you're interacting with something, we need to make this guy follow the player, right?
Right.
So what we could have done is we could have made the interaction text a child of the player so that it would follow them. Which, now that I think about it, would have been significantly easier. However, at the same time, I don't think we want to do it that way because we want the UI manager to manage it. We don't want to have to look into the player to ask about his UI. So we want to handle all of it in the UI manager. So it's gonna be a little ugly. So what we'll have to do is in the UI manager, if we can interact with something. So we have the set can interact method. If we can interact with something, now we have the specific one here. If we can interact, we need access to I don't know if this is how you can even access text mesh. Text mesh pro dash text. Can we drag and drop this guy? We cannot. I'm assuming we're just missing an import. Haha, we are. So I hate setting references. Okay, so I could do one of two things. I could either in the UI manager, I could drag the interaction text into that field now. If I saved properly. Whoops. Go away or I will taunt you a second time. Dude, the the taunts from Gary's mod still in my brain. Okay, so we could either um, drag the interaction text in here and it would have a reference to it. But the problem is if somebody accidentally deletes this guy, all of a sudden we don't have a reference to it. So what I'm going to do is on awake, we will say text mesh, and actually we will rename this to interaction text mesh is equal to get component in children text mesh pro. So what this will do is, since the UI manager is the parent, it will search all of its children until it finds this guy, and it will then reference this script, which I can then use to, edit anything else on the game object. Um, oh, also something I probably should have pointed out sooner. The way our singletons work is that in the awake function, basically we have a static instance. So if we haven't been made before, our instance is this version of the script, and then we tell it don't destroy on load. So if we go to a new scene, it won't destroy this object or this script. Otherwise, if we're loading into a new scene and this guy already exists, we'll just destroy ourselves and don't do anything. So basically what that means is even if we load into a new scene, anything after this curly bracket will never be called more than once. Oh, I got the hiccups. Yeah, so we know that this guy will only ever be called once. So now when if we can interact, um, we have something in, we set the interactable type, otherwise the interactable type is none. So what we can do then is in update, um, if the interactable type is not equal to, come on, autocomplete, yeah, none. And the interactable type is just like the different types of canvases I can interact with, right? And I think I can actually take out the bed. No, we actually have a canvas for that. Never mind. Ignore me. Um, okay, so um, if it's not none, then what we need to do is update our text mesh. We need to update its position to be equal to the player's position plus like some constant y. And we remove the access to the player. Oh yeah, because we had to do this thing. I think it's better to do it this way than to have to like store references all over. That way, like, it's a poor man's version of dependency injection. Is basically how I view it. Like, I only have to do it once when I start, and then I don't have to like make sure every script has a reference to it. I can just ask the player manager for a reference to it.
Right.
Okay. Transform position. Let's see if she works. You need if it's not equal to none, we turn it on, and we also say its text is equal to we'll just call it UI canvas type for now. Isn't there like a toString? Actually, wrong one. Interactable type dot toString. Otherwise, we just turn it off. And we're not getting too nitty-gritty into the UI. We'll get there in just a minute when we rework the notice board. Ah, I'm a
Ooh.
genius! Bed. Bed. Terminal. Did you notice it said notice board off the bat?
Yeah.
That's because the UI manager to start has an interactable type of notice board when it needs an interactable type of none. Which I'm assuming we should also set in the prefab itself in case we make a new scene and we forget to do that. Alrighty. And we also need to do, we'll make a little string for this. So it'll be private static string get interaction string. And so we'll switch on the interaction type. And since we are a singleton, we have to access things through the instance of this class. So we want to say string interaction is going to be equal to press E2 and then plus something, right? So case sleep play music. Manage ship. What was the last one? Vending machine. I haven't even implemented the vending machine. So for vending, we would say press E to buy snacks with an X, of course. And we will return the interaction. And then up here, instead of this, we will say get interaction string. Press E to sleep, press E to manage company, press E to accept missions. And now all we got to do is set it equal to the position plus, I don't know, like 1.5. So it's like above our head. Ah, 1.5 is way farther than I thought it would be.
0.5? Yeah.
I think the actual character is only, yeah, 0.8 meters, about a meter tall, the sprite itself.
Mm.
I'll probably have to adjust the size of the sprite, but that's fine. Yeah, let's go. Press E to B. Press E to accept missions, and manage ship. Works on all of these guys. Perfect. Imported text mesh pro. Added interaction text. Okay, next step. Text mesh pro render queue. Extra settings panel. Oh, I'm blind. Geometry sorting layer. Ha ha ha. So I think if we put it at 1... No, come back. -1. 5,000. Where do you edit the sorting layers? Ah, default. Um, Text. I can't come up with a better name. So inside the actual prefab, we will change your sorting order to text. In which case, you should. Can I put you on top? Oh, how about now?
Mhm.
How about now? Liars. Oh, if I read, you can use the Text Mesh Pro mobile distance field overlay shader. Text Mesh Pro
Mobile.
mobile distance field overlay. And then we can get rid of these layer things because I have no idea what the hell they do. I'm assuming they're like sorting order for... Yeah!
Yeah.
Ah, gorgeous.
Ooh.
Perfection. Uh, Render interaction text in front. Also, notice how I'm making really small commits so I can go back and figure out what I changed, right?
Right.
Okay. So, we can take this guy off. Okay, so I need to talk to Hakeem to fix the animations. Our feet are slightly in the ground. If you notice, when you hit play, our feet are ever so slightly in the ground.
Yeah.
And the problem with that is that
Is it the animation?
the player's bounding box needs to be slid down just a hair.
Oh,
So that way, when I hit the ground, boop, my player is standing above it. I think I could even go... minus 0.42. That looks so dumb, and I feel like I'm doing something wrong. Okay, so let's up the height to like 1.1, because I don't... What I didn't understand is why the sprite like isn't uh, equidistant from the sides, and I assume that's just because the sprite sheet is off. But okay, right about there. So that way I can like actually hit my head on things, and my hair can
right.
poke through, I guess. How about them apples? Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay. Fix player feet in ground, question mark? Nah, we'll leave the question mark out. Okay, so we can take this out. Okay, so add cinemachine, fix camera movement. Camera isn't always centered. I'm too lazy to do that right now. Uh, Too lazy to do that right now. Somebody else is doing that, and somebody else is doing that. So for the lounge, we need to add the pilot's chillin'. So right here, we want our first pilot. Okay, this is going to be much more involved than everything else. So let's just update the notice board. That sounds good. So the notice board is where you go to accept your missions. And right now, not only does it look atrocious, it looks atrocious, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so I should probably edit the scriptable object to not say blow people up. Missions, mission 1, deliver moon rocks to the cool people. The cargo is moon rocks, blow people up. The customer was the pirates, and the cargo is bombs. We'll say the mission is to pre prepare for battle. That sounds good. And then mission 3 is do the thing, customer the boring people, cargo taxes. Uh, we're gonna ignore that exists. None of these missions are final. Stefano has all the actual game design. I'm just getting it to work, right?
Right.
Okay, so step 1, the interaction text shouldn't start out turned on in the prefab. The interaction text should be toggled off, and the UI manager should handle turning it on. Potential spam from Reno, Nevada. I'm good. We want to edit the notice board canvas, which I believe is in the lounge interaction. Notice board canvas. Okay, so we have a couple issues with this. One, the scroll view content, or the scroll view itself, has an image attached to it, and it the first problem I have with it is that when you add, so I made a prefab for the items, right? The first problem I have with it is that the edges, it goes into the ceiling. So we're going to add some padding to, say, 20 on each side. And we'll actually add 20 in spacing so it's uniform. So if we add more, it looks like so. So oh yeah, I forget I'm supposed to be explaining UI. Okay, so we have our canvas, right? And our canvas, we can't change the rect transform because it's handled by Unity, right? So if I think if I do this, it changes the scale. Okay, ignore me. This, yeah, okay. So the canvas scaler is what controls the scale of the canvas itself, right? So this is going to scale things based off of your resolution on your screen, right? So this is kind of handled for you under the hood. So everything inside of the canvas, so we'll see I have a parent, which is just a parent for everything inside of it. And the way I do things is based off of the anchors. So the anchors have a min and a max. So the x is from 0 to 1. So from the bottom left to from the left to the right. The y is from 0 to 1. So from the bottom to the top. So if I were to set this to like 0.5, you'd see these little triangles here move their way down, right? So I'm saying the parent is only allowed to go from it can extend the whole width, but it can only go halfway up in height of the entire canvas. And then you see the top is negative 515. That's because it didn't automatically conform to the anchor. So if I set this to 0, you can see we are 0 pixels from the left of the anchor, 0 pixels from the top, right, and bottom of the anchor. So if I add a 10 here, you see it pushes over 10 pixels from the left of the anchor, right? So the way that I do everything is I always put a parent just about every time. Because what I might want to do in the future is add like an image to the parent, so I can add a background to the whole thing or something like that. Or parents just make it easier to move things around in the future. So then I have the left pane and the right pane. So on the left pane, it is allowed to go from 0 to 0.5 on the x. So you can see its triangles here, its anchors, right? And then it's allowed to go from 0 to 1 in the y, right? So it's the left half of the screen. So the right pane is the exact opposite. It goes from 0.5 to 1. The other values that are here, the z, you'll never need to worry about that unless you're like placing things on top of each other, which you shouldn't really ever want to do. The pivots are like where the UI would rotate. So if it's at 0.5, 0.5, it'll rotate about the middle. So if I rotate, can I even? Yeah, there we go. So you see how it rotates about the middle? Whereas
Yeah.
if I slide the pivot up, It rotates about like a point above it, right? So it's like a yeah. So it pretends as though the line of the circle is out here. So I never really have to touch the pivots because I don't worry about UI rotation. I can't really think of a good example other than like UI animations, really. So you never really have to mess with the rotation, and you never really have to mess with the scale because the bounds of your rectangle are set by your anchors and the amount of pixels you are from the anchor. It's that simple. So the components that I use to control everything. So in the left pane, it just has an image. So if I toggle off the image, you can just see it's the background here, right? So the left pane just has this gray background, and if I open it up, you see inside of it, all I added was a scroll view. And the scroll view takes up the whole pane, right? It's from 0, 0 to 1, 1, right? So it goes from the bottom left to the top right. But it goes from 0, 0, 1 to 1, 1 inside of the left pane, right? So its anchors, its max values are from the bottom left to the top right of the pane that we've already said is only half of the entire canvas, right? So you could see how you could dynamically lay these things out such that if the canvas, if you have an ultra wide monitor, everything will just be stretched in width because everything is still like, it's 50% of the X no matter how wide your monitor is, right? So scroll views come with a bunch of crap inside of them. So you have the viewport, which is just an image of its own. So you can see if I start toggling off images all the way, you can see there's still this faint gray glow because that's inherent to the scroll view for whatever reason they made that a thing. All you ever have to really worry about is the content. The content is what is actually inside the scroll view. So on the content, you put a vertical layout group because it's going to vertically align each of the items, right? So item 1 would be the first guy, right? And so the vertical layout group, I can assign a padding, just like how we have the left. Also, Unity does this thing sometimes. I have no idea why, but it bugs the ever-loving hell out of me. It'll like randomly set like really, really close to 0, but not quite 0 because of, I assume, floating point rounding issues. Oh, hi, Chris.
So,
Hey,
how's it going?
Good. I'm teaching
it's
Michael
good.
some UI stuff. I'm recording on
Okay.
YouTube. If you missed the first, I didn't notice when you joined.
Yeah, I just joined.
Oh, okay. I happened to look over at a good time then. Yeah, I'm walking him through basically how the Starlight Express is set up so far.
Okay.
Giving him an intro to UI because he's gonna have to do some of that for jumping jacks soon.
Okay.
Also recording to YouTube because content.
Right.
But yeah, feel free to stop me if you have any questions. So okay, so our scroll view has a content, and the content is where all of the things inside of the scroll view live. So you put a vertical layout group in it for it to automatically resize the things inside of it. So you have a few controls. So I could choose where I want them to start automatically aligning things. And you see, so if I move it to the left, everything will align to the left side. If I move it to the center, it'll move to the center. Notice how upper and lower don't work. It doesn't push things down because I have
Mhm.
this thing called the content size fitter. Basically, what it tries to do is this content thing that's holding all of your content in your scroll view. It can change depending on how many items are in your scroll view. So what happens is, as the content thing grows, the scroll bars will scale depending on how much content you have in there. So that way they can, if you have 100 items in there, the scroll bar gets really tiny, right? So you can actually scroll, right?
Mm.
So we put the content size fitter in there, and we give it so it comes as both unconstrained, but we want the vertical fit to be the preferred size, so it will preferably fit everything inside of the content view vertically, right? Whereas the horizontal fit, we just want it to stretch the whole thing so it's unconstrained. The other options you have in here are, I've never used reverse alignment. I have literally no idea what that does. I'm going to leave this as middle center. Actually, does this just put the bottom thing on the top? I wouldn't know because all the items have the same text, but whatever. So you can have it control the child size. So if I turned this guy on, and I like spaced it back out, it would manually control the children's size for me. The child force expand. So if I go into a notice board item, if I just go look at the prefab that I made here, it has, I gave it a width and height of 600 by 40. I gave it a button, and that button just has an image on it, which is just the white background, and then the text has whatever the text is. So the notice board item has a script on it that allows, when I'm populating this thing, it allows me to access this button should hold a reference to a mission, It needs access to the text so that way we can set it depending on which mission we're loading. And then we need access to the button so we can set what it does when you click on it, right? So let's go, let me undo all of this and actually fix the spacing. And then on the right pane, it's very similar. We have the right pane is just a vertical layout group, and then we have an item, which is the job name, and inside of it, all it has is 2 text fields. I have yet to figure out why you can see the text doesn't line up perfectly on the sides because the boxes have decided they want to hold. Um, okay, so the parent is a vertical layout group. The job name itself is a horizontal layout group, so it'll automatically stretch the things, right, horizontally. And I believe, actually, I believe what I could do to fix this is you can add a layout element as a child to both of them. And then you can give it a flexible width, and it should use that. You see, if I change it 5, it means basically the layout element on the left has 5 times the priority of the layout element on the right. So it should get 80% of the space, right? So I figured if I set both of them to 1, it would give them equal priority. But because this text is longer, that is not in fact the case. So if we don't control the child's width or height, and we just like manually set it to like 400, 100, and we set you to 400, 100. I guess if we do that to all of them. Oh, I can't because you are all controlling the children's size. Now all of a sudden they line up as they should. Because their horizontal distance is as expected. That's so weird. There should be a way that you could just like make them both half. Hmm. I don't know, I'll have to look into that. But for now, this will get them lined up. I believe on the notice board we wanted to fix the UI scaling, which was the horizontal things not lining up. Also, the button is way too massive. So the problem is that the vertical layout group is controlling the children's size, right? So it's saying this first item has to fill up this whole space. So what we can do instead is we can create an empty object and make this button a child of it. So that way this doesn't behave as expected whatsoever. Okay, if we delete that, let's collapse all these guys. And we just add an empty child. And then we add a button. Boop. Okay, there we go. And now we can change the text to accept mission. And we'll change the button size to something like 240 by 40. That looks much less oppressive on the eyes. I think the base text size I've been going with so far is like 25 font. And that doesn't look as awful. Still looks awful because my UI skills are trash, but acceptable for now. Okay, so if we go load the game, null reference exception. That does in fact make sense. We're getting a null reference exception here because it's trying to grab our interaction text mesh, but when we grab it, we used get component, and get component won't work if the game object was toggled off. So I lied when I said that this guy needs to be toggled off in the prefab. And now it'll be able to get it and turn it off. So we done goofed somehow. We deleted the job button and there was a reference to it. This is why I hate having references to things, but I'll show you why I did it. So in the lounge, we have the notice board and the notice board canvas. So on the parent, we have this thing called the notice board script. And if I'll just show you what we have inside of it. So we have the scroll view content, which is just a reference to the parent, or to the content in the scroll view. So that way when we create a new list item, we set the content to its parent. We have the prefab for each of those individual items that we were creating. And then we have a reference to the text that we need to fill in. And then we need a reference to the accept button. And I'm going to rename these. I'm going to say this is the accept container. So now when I look in here, I can see that this is actually named accept button, so I made sure I set things correctly. So if we go open this guy up, we can see what it does. So we're just holding public references to all those variables. And we could have generated these at runtime, which I probably will recommend on average. The reason we're not doing that is because all of this stuff is self-contained in a prefab. So inside the notice board canvas, it has a reference to all the things it needs inside of it. I don't need to reach outside the canvas for any of the UI elements that I need to deal with, right? So when we toggle this thing on, we grab the accept button, we remove all of its listeners, and then we add the listener saying that we should accept the mission. When this guy is toggled on, we say we don't have a mission selected yet. We clean the scroll view, so that way the clean the scroll view just loops through the scroll view content. It loops through every child of it and deletes them all. And then we populate the scroll view. And so what we do is we have the missions manager. And this is another singleton. And basically it's just holding if I go look at it, it's holding a mission container, which is a scriptable object holding an array of missions, which are themselves scriptable objects that are just holding all the data about the missions. So we populate the scroll view by looping through, getting all the missions. If we have enough, if we have enough money to unlock the mission, then we'll populate it. And if it hasn't been accepted yet, we'll also add it. So once we accept the mission, we don't want it on the board anymore. And once we have if we don't have enough money to unlock it, we shouldn't show it either, right? So we instantiate our prefab that we have, which is just this guy that we saw before, right? So we instantiate that guy and we set his parent to the scroll view content. And so then we get the notice board script on top of him. And remember, the notice board script just holds a reference to the mission, the text that we need to edit, and the button itself. And so I made a little init function that you pass in the mission. And so now this button is holding a reference to the mission, right? So I generate all these buttons and I say each one of these buttons represents a mission. So that way when I click on it, I now have access to the mission that I should be selecting, right? And so when I click on the button, I always call remove all listeners first in case I am setting up the button twice. I don't want to have two listeners on it, right? I don't want it to do the same thing twice because I called this method twice. So I always use remove first. Okay, so when I click, I add a listener, and this is a lambda expression. If you're not familiar with lambda expressions in C#, I would highly recommend looking up. Basically, what it means is that I'm going to add a listener that, when I click on the button, is going to call a function and pass in a mission. And that function, I pass in using an action, and the action is of type mission. So I'm basically, when I click on one of these buttons, it's going to pass a mission into a function. Well, what function is that? When we're populating, I want to have them select an item. So it's going to pass in the mission that it's holding on to. And so we say our selected mission is that mission to select, right? So when we'll actually go do this in practice. I know this is probably brain draining. So if I open up this panel, if we go look at the notice board canvas, we see we have two items here. So the notice board item, the first one is pointing to mission 1. So that'll be deliver moon rocks, right? The second one is pointing to the second mission, which is prepare for battle, right? So when I click on the button, nothing happens because I broke something. text is white. Okay, so if we have a UI bug, what we do is we just click on the scene view. We click on 2D. I'm going to move a little bit so you can see my mouse. We're going to click on 2D here, and then we're just going to scroll out until we can see the UI. And now if we go and we click on the job name, we can see the boxes here, right? If we click on job name label and text, okay, we can see that the box has been set incorrectly. So I'm assuming if we force it to control its child sizes, it will resize them properly. And so the reason that we ran into that issue, I made it dumb. If we don't control our child size, when we like rescale the UI, it won't automatically resize these guys. And I don't remember. So we're gonna run back into that issue where now, if I go back and I add this in, you're gonna see that they don't line up perfectly. I I know there's a solution for it. I don't remember what it is. So we'll hmm. I was gonna say we'll leave it, but I don't want to. The naive solution would be to. Oh, actually, this might work beautiful. Take all of the texts and make them right justified so that they all line up on the right side perfectly. And then take the entire right pane and add more left and right padding. That seems like an awful idea now that I think about it. Okay, you guys, I think it needs more padding either way. There's a better way to do it. I'm just not thinking of it. I'm going to fix the spacing in the notice board canvas because I definitely think it needs more padding. Oop, wrong one. Prefabs, UI, lounge interaction notice board. And we'll actually make it even on all sides so it looks uniform. And we will go ahead and add back in the control child size. I wonder if I can just leave on height, and if I don't do width, if it'll keep them aligned. If I center their text, do they line up more? No. Let's go look up horizontal layout group. So there's this notion of preferred width. So we have flexible, and that's to scale things relative to their other counterparts. Actually, I wonder if I make them both 10, it's going to do the same thing that I did before. 420. It's 425 wide, and the other one is 530. Okay, so we want them to somehow be uniform. So I think if we do preferred width of like 400 on both. You're 479. You're 479. That appears to have fixed it. That doesn't 100% make sense to me, I guess. But that'll get them to line up, so let's do that. So to all of them, we'll add a layout element. For preferred width, we'll put 400. I'm not happy about it being the solution, but it'll do. Also, I think these guys might need to be pushed over even a little bit more. So instead of adding more padding, I think I'm just going to center justify all these ones. And center justify all these guys. Nope, that looks janky. We need the whole thing to be scooted over. Alright, I'm not a UI guy. I'm not going to spend too much time on it. I'll have the UI people handle that for me. So we will say fixed notice board layout scaling. And obviously in the future this will look way... I have to fetch first. I see that you have made your pull request, Chris.
Made it or merged it?
Merged it.
Yeah.
I will give it a try on my end and make sure it works.
You're gonna have to set that. You're gonna have to set the speed. You're gonna have to set that vector. I could put a default in there for the office door.
It looks like the prefab didn't get overwritten. Oh, you changed the prefab, but you didn't change the prefab in the scene.
Oh, okay.
So,
all right. Well, I gotta change it.
No, it's fine. Look, I can
Okay.
just drag your prefab in, right?
Yep. There you go. Okay. Yeah. Now set the. Okay. Let's see the offset for the door. Yeah. Just like 1.3 works really well. It will put it just inside the wall. Actually, that and also the position is completely different than where I had it on the collider. Huh. Interesting.
I actually like leaving it like a hair there so you can still see the door.
Yeah, I noticed though if you touch the door at all, you're hung up on it.
Yeah, my physics is super good, right?
Well, I didn't. I mean, wasn't sure.
Why is that?
I mean, and also the first time you had me load the project, I know you could put escape and pop out of there, but that stopped working for me almost immediately.
Huh.
But it's interesting though that yeah, the prefab, the collider is like it was half in one room and half in the other room. I'll take a look on my side.
Oh, step one, we should probably have the collider like right here, right?
Yeah, that's where I put it.
Oh.
I had the collider half. It was just big enough to overtake that white step pad, and the same size on the other side of the door.
There we go, like that.
Yeah, yeah. Only it was down. It moved down to the. Oh, actually, it doesn't really matter. I had it down basically. Yeah, even with the floor, but that didn't really matter. Yeah, that's how I had it. So I don't know why it moved. Interesting.
Because Unity is cranky. That's all I got.
Yeah.
The door activator has a scale of its own. So
Yeah.
we want this. We want to scale the collider, not the transform, right? So we'll put you at like 1.5, like you were. That'll do, donkey. Let's see how she work. So if we turn on gizmos up in the
Yeah.
top right, you can see the collider
Yeah.
while it's running. All right, we'll probably make it just a hair bigger on this axis. Yeah, there we go. Make it like twice as big.
Cool.
Look at that. Beautiful.
Cool.
Good stuff.
All right, now push that.
Yeah. Fixed office door collider offset. And now we can actually take this guy and move him over here.
Yeah.
Good enough for me. And you're, instead of being in the office, you're in the lounge. And you're a decoration. Actually, you're an interactable. That would make more sense. And just to make sure we're not crazy. Heck yeah.
Cool.
Added lounge office door. And it might help if I save. Okay, so where were we? Okay, so we fixed the UI scaling. We need to do this now. So the problem was that when I go into this, when I click on a job, when I hit accept, it should automatically, it should either clear the UI on the right-hand side, or it should set to the next guy, right? So that way it's not on a job that we already accept. So if we go to accept mission, we clean the scroll view and we populate the scroll view, but we don't set any of these texts. So I'm actually going to, I'm just going to clear them for now because I'm not sure what Stefano is going to want to do. So I'm going to add a function called clean detail pane. I'll add it below our other guy. And I don't like ever seeing this type of thing, so I use string.empty. And you're mad because that. So when we accept a mission, we clean the detail pane. And when we on enable, let's clean the detail pane as well, because we haven't accepted anything yet. Ah, clicking too fast. So when we open up, there should be nothing there. When we click on a mission, it populates. When we hit accept, it unpopulates and the thing disappears. Perfect. Notice board, UI, notice board, detail pane updating. And did I see an error? No, I didn't. Okay. Okay, so what's next? I'll leave this tab because I'm sure there's going to be more notice board issues in the future. Let's finish the day cycles. Let's add the day ending. So this is going to get really complicated. One sec, gotta respond to some messages. Dude, the character artist for Jumping Jacks was working on the player earlier today, and I saw his stream in one of the other Discords that he's in. Oh my god, does it look amazing. I am so pumped. Okay, so let's fix the issue where... Oh, I have gizmos on. That's why it looks so weird. Where when I open this, if I put a mission in here, and I close, and I reopen, the mission's still there. That bugs the hell out of me, and that is game breaking. So, we don't need the notice board anymore. We won't use the hanger node. We won't use player manager, player movement. And we will be using the terminal. And you will be the missions UI. Oops, missions UI. So I can give you a breakdown of how this guy works. Kind of complicated. Okay, so he's in the UI manager too. The terminal canvas turns on when I hit E. It has its own main panel, right? So it's the entire panel. I'll actually go to the 2D mode so we can show off how this guy works. Okay, so the terminal is each one of these buttons changes the panel that you're on, right? So if I go to game and I click on any of the buttons, they change the panel that you're on, right?
Mm.
So all they do is the main panel holds the tabs. So the main panel is the entire thing. The tabs is this pane over here on the left. The main panel container is using the instead of using the anchors for this, I actually used a horizontal layout group, and I gave this guy's preferred with 100, and this guy's preferred with Actually, I didn't give it a preferred width. I said I want the guy on the right to be 10 times as big as the guy on the left, no matter how big your screen is, right? Which might not scale well on small screens, but we won't worry about that right now. So the tabs, all it is there's the company name, the money that your player has, and then each of the buttons, right? So the main panel, the Terminal UI Manager, all it does is it holds a reference to each of the buttons, a reference to each of the panels, and we add listeners to each of the buttons, and we say if one of the tab button is clicked, turn off all the other panels, and turn on the correct tab that you want, right? So this is how you make tabs in Unity, right? So clear panels just goes into each of their objects and sets them inactive, and when you click on a tab, I like using enums for this type of thing, so I just have an enum value for each of the tabs. Okay, so we click on the missions tab, and what'll happen is the missions panel opens up, which allows the missions UI script to start being active, right? So inside the missions panel, we have the missions list, which is this pane right here, and then we have the mission schedule, which is over here. So basically what you want to do is you want to put a mission in one of the hangar nodes, so that way that ship is going to do that mission in a bit, right? Uh, Basically what happens is that when you now that we've scheduled a mission, what should happen is now when you go to the hangar and you hit E to start, there should be something about the mission, like it'll be say like launch, go do deliver rocks mission. When you hit launch, your ship will go fly off to go do your mission, right? And so when you sleep, if the mission so missions can take different amounts of time. So if you sleep and the missions only took 1 day, your ship will be back. But if the mission takes 2 days, you'll have to sleep again before your ship will show up in the hangar again. Okay, where were we? So the missions list is just like before. It's going to be a scroll view. It's going to have in the content a list of the items, and the items are also going to hold a reference to the text that it needs to hold, a reference to the mission that it needs to hold, and then a reference to the canvas that that it's on. So that way, when we drag it, look what happens when I drag it. You can see over here there's two list items. When I pick it up, it disappears. And you can see if you watch right below mission schedule here, you'll see I actually unparent the list item. So now it's not parented by anything. Because if I didn't, the scroll view content is going to be using its vertical layout group to determine this thing's position and size, right? So I need to unparent it so that the vertical layout group isn't controlling it anymore. And then when I drop it in one of the nodes, inside the mission schedule, there's just a schedule slot. And all I do is I make it a child of the job slot. Make sense? So when I'll show you actually how this works. So
Yeah, I was about to ask. Can
yeah,
you show me how that works in code?
yeah. So okay, so we'll start with just the missions UI. So all we have is a reference to the scroll view content, a prefab for each of those list items, and then I can actually get rid of this. An array of the schedule slots, right? Which we're just gonna have 6 of them, and I'm gonna set these manually in the prefab. So when we turn on, we clean our scroll view. So we just for each one of the childs in our scroll view content, we destroy. And this is I should probably make this a util because this is a really common thing that we'll have to do. And then we populate the scroll view. So just as before, for each one of the missions, but instead of so our missions manager holds all of our missions, but it also holds just a list of the missions that are accepted in the notice board. And the reason I did it like this is what I could have done is I could have said, "Yo, mission container, will you loop through and find all the ones where you were accepted in the mission in the notice board?" The problem with that is that later on when this game is almost done, we'll have like 200, 300 missions. I don't want to have to do a for loop through that. I'm just gonna have a list of the missions that were accepted, so that way I can just loop through these guys and not have to do anything complex. Um, that might actually be overkill. I probably could have just looped through this. It's not a big deal. But so for each one of those missions in the ones that were accepted in our notice board, we create a scroll item for it. We get its mission item, and then just like before, we initialize it. And when we initialize it, all we do is we pass in the mission. We set it so it has a local reference. We set the text of the item, and then we handle the dragging. So on begin drag happens when you put your mouse down, and these come from the drag handlers, which come from the Unity engine.event system. So these are interfaces that come from if you hover over it, you can see it says event system right here, right? So on begin drag passes in pointer event data. You don't really have to use it. So when we start dragging, I unparent it. I change the canvas group's alpha, which basically means I just make it slightly transparent, right? So when I pick up an item, you can see it's slightly transparent, so it kind of has like a little bit of context to what you're doing. And then I turn off the fact that this guy should block raycasts. And the reason for that is that I don't like if I want to drop this guy here, I'm gonna be doing a cast to check if it's inside of the bounds of this thing, right? So I want to make sure that the guy that I'm holding isn't blocking the raycast for me to check underneath of it, right? So while I'm dragging, I just set its anchored position to the change in position divided by the scale of the canvas, right? So that way it follows my mouse basically. And then when I drop it, I say you're now allowed to block raycasts again. Reset your alpha, and now we have to figure out which slot you were hovered over. So if I did find a slot, I want that to be my parent, and now its layout group will handle my scale. Otherwise, set me back. So like if I were to pick this guy up and I were to set it out here, set me back to so my parent is the guy before, right? The list. So to get if my slot is if I hovered over a slot, I pass in the position that my mouse is at. For each one of the 6 slots that are here, I use the rect transform utility, and I ask, does my rectangle include so that this function is a utility, right? So I pass in each of the slots, and then I pass in the position. If this rectangle contains this position, then return that slot. So basically what I'm doing is I pick this guy up, I unparent him, I hover over something. When I let go, if where my mouse is at is inside of the bounds of this rectangle, you are now my parent, and you can control how I work. Does that all make sense?
Yeah.
Perfect. You follow along, Chris? That all makes sense to you? Are you alive? He is muted. He might be busy.
Sorry, I was typing in the other window.
You're good. Okay, so now what we have to do is we have to make it so that So UI, visually, this works correctly. However, under the hood, we're not keeping tracks of which missions are in the schedule and which missions are just in the list, right? So and also what we probably want to do is that ignore these errors. It's just because I changed code while it was running.
Mm.
If I put another guy in here, it's just a vertical layout group, so it's just going to add it to it. But what I need to do is when I drop it, I need to if there's one in there, I need to bump it out, pull it out, and let this guy be in here, right? So let's. Okay, so there's 3 things we need to do. We need to replace it if there's one in there. We need to set it so that once it's in the slot, it's no longer in the list. That way it won't be populated next time. So I think this idea is probably dumb. I shouldn't be doing this. Yeah, we will ixnay on that guy. I'll leave this init method because I'll probably have to do something with it in the future. Now let's go figure out where this guy was being used. So instead of getting missions accepted in notice board, we will just say get accepted missions. So this will be public static. I hate working with arrays, so I'm going to use a list. Actually, we could do a for each loop, but we're going to do some magic. We're going to say mission container, instance dot mission container dot missions. So the mission container is literally just like, it just wraps all the missions. So that way, in Unity, when we go to scriptable objects and we go to missions, we have the mission container, which is literally just holding an array of the missions. So that way, this is like our source of truth for all the missions, and then each of the individual missions just hold their data, right? So, so for each one of the missions inside of our mission container, we should be able to do using system.link. Where? Yeah, where? How do you like that, Mapples? And this is .toList. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And usually if you're going to be using link, I like to do this so you can visualize the call chains. So we filter it where this is true, right? Where it has been accepted. That makes sense to me. And then we also need public bool is scheduled.
Sweetie.
And we actually will need that. Never mind. You calling me sweetie, Chris?
Hold on. Yes, I'm. My wife walked in, and yes. No, no, she can use that table if she wants.
Okay, so for each one of my accepted missions, we add them to the board. We populate the scroll view with them. So when we populate, we only want to get So the mission needs some way to store which place it's scheduled in. So we can do that with the hanger node. Scheduled hanger node. And we can actually get rid of this because I believe hanger node has a none. It does. Cool. So get we don't want that makes sense, Michael? So for the list of them, we're only going to get the ones where it hasn't been assigned to a hanger node.
Right.
For the scheduled, where we populate the slots, we want them where it is assigned to a hanger node. We don't care which one, right?
Okay.
So we populate the scroll view with ones that are accepted, and then we populate the hanger slots. What did I call you? Mission schedule slot. For each one of the slots, if this is gonna get ugly. So we're gonna get a list of missions. We'll call it scheduled missions. And we'll say mission manager get scheduled missions. So for each one of the slots, if scheduled missions dot contains. We basically want to say if this slot is equal to one of the ones that. Let's see, is the easiest way to do this. We want to check if their hanger nodes are equal without doing a double for loop. I love link. We're going to be using. There's probably a better way to do this, but I can't think of one. Hmm. So we're going to be doing the exact same thing, except for the parent will then be the slot dot transform. What am I doing? And then when I drop the mission in the slot, we'll set my parent and we'll also say mission dot scheduled hanger node is equal to slot dot. Hey, damn it. Genius. Let's try it. What are you mad about? We don't need that anymore. Do do. Ha ha. Um. It doesn't have a. So it didn't pass in a mission? Come on. I believe in Unity. Derp. So, we've ran into this odd situation where our missions are nowhere. That's because y'all are in a funky state where you're not set up correctly. Okay, so your default is 1, where we want your default. You just pick the first one, so we'll put none first. How can we make scriptable object default values? Can I just do this? Is that a thing I can do? Appears so. Okay, so we accept the deliver Moonrocks mission. Go back here. Interesting. You have a scheduled hanger node. Why? Oops. Do, 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 do. Ha, ha, ha. So when we drop it in the slot, it was not updated the hanger node that it was in. So in missions UI, if we found a slot, we want our hanger node equal to whatever the hanger node of the slot was, but we never set the hanger nodes of the slot because we're derps. And we want to set this in the mission prefab. This seems like a recipe for disaster. Like, this seems like a dumb way to do it, but that's what we're going to go with. So we grab our mission item, we look at our mission, and when we drop it, it has a hanger node. Okay, so if we leave it here, and we leave, and we come back, there's 2 of them. So in the missions UI, when we clean menu, we need to not only clear each of these guys, but for each transform slot in mission slots dot. Actually, what are you? Mission schedule slot. We want to destroy the slot dot. Okay, so the mission schedule slot is the top level thingy. The slot transform is the thing that holds the job. So we want to destroy anything inside of the slot transform. So if slot transform child count is greater than 0, slot destroy slot slot transform dot get child at 0. Oh yeah, let's go. Boop. We want to destroy the game object, not the transform. So when we let go of it,
So Sabian, I am gonna have to dip here in a second.
you're fine, man.
All right, cool. No, a real quick question on UI stuff. Um, as far as I guess how it shows up. Um, I'm trying to think of like how to do like just the text shows up if it's the text shows you click the button and you can't do one thing. Okay, that one thing is going to be here. But if you can't do four things, it's going to be like four separate boxes that just pop up of the text, or is it? Like,
You're gonna have to give me a second try on explaining that one.
yeah. So I guess the main reason being because I'm thinking like in terms of generating the text. Um, so if you have like one thing that's wrong, obviously it's going to be like you don't have the starting checkpoint or you don't have the ending checkpoint. It's all going to be in the same spot every time when you show that that's what's wrong. It's in terms of like showing multiple that's wrong. That's like okay, it's going to show one right here, then one beneath it, then one beneath it, then one beneath it, or so on and so forth. Right?
Yes, if I understand your question. So you're talking on jumping jacks.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, my brain is not computing right now. I'm sorry. You have to show me an example of what you're thinking.
Okay. Okay, I'll figure that out and send it to you.
Okay.
Just saying because based on what I saw today, I'm like, okay, I think I can do it. But it's like I feel like that'd be a problem, and maybe I'm just not explaining it correctly, but I'll figure it out.
What was the UI thing that we even had you to work on, anyways? Sorry, I cannot keep track of what all 30 people are doing.
Oh yeah, so I'm just doing a. So what it was the publish button for the level editor. When you click on it, um, it doesn't allow you to keep clicking on it while it's trying to upload to Steam, but B,
It grays out if you don't meet validation.
yeah, if you don't meet a validation for the level, like the name, the description, starting checkpoint, end checkpoint, it doesn't upload and it says what you did wrong.
Yep.
Right now, I just have it saying what you did wrong in the console, and yeah, trying to figure out how to put it on the UI.
For each one of the things that are wrong, create a vertical. So you'll have a vertical layout group that's going to hold your errors, right?
Right.
For each one of the things that are wrong, create an item. That item contains a picture of a red X and a description, a text box.
Mhm.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay.
I guess now that my question was mainly, do I make four separate objects or do I make one big object? If you want to make
Separate,
it
because in the future we're probably going to have to add more validation to it, right?
right.
So that way all we can do is if you have another validation error, you should add another line of
All right.
X you did it wrong plus text Y.
Right. All right. So I'm gonna dip now. Nice chatting with y'all.
Yep, I got you, man.
All right. Later.
Peace. Wait a minute. that's new. So if I am holding a button... Okay, well, problem 1 solved. We update the schedule slot. Updated mission to add to schedule. The new issue we found is that this is probably under player. If holding movement direction when opening UI, player doesn't stop moving. And I'm going to get back to that because I don't want to context switch because now my brain is stuck on the mission and stuff. Okay, so what we need to do is disable slots if we don't have a ship in that slot. Right, so we only own one ship. We only own one ship, and it's in this slot. So we can only schedule missions in this slot. We can schedule missions in this slot when we unlock a ship and there's a ship in that slot. So I think what we need to do, we need to get the slot for the mission drag. For each one of the slots, if our rectangle, if we dropped it inside of it, and the ship slot is active, so we could probably just add, when we set these things up, that's kind of ugly. Okay, this is a two-step process. We have to, when we generate the UI, we have to make the slot grayed out, and then when we want to drop the thing, we have to check if whatever made that grayed out status a thing prevents the mission. So we will add to do and end mission slot dot is active, something along those lines. So when we are, I don't think we're, okay, so these nodes, we have a schedule slot, and we have the hanger node, which is just, we should probably rename this to hanger node label or something like that. Label. And you have the job slot, which has an image. So the schedule slot needs 2 different images, or we could just like do this type of thing, because I don't have assets for this. So that's what we'll do. So when we're populating our scroll view, we populate it with all of our stuffs. So on enable, we clean our menu. Set up mission slots. Makes sense to me. And since this is the first function called, we'll put it at the top of the class. Set up mission slots. Might help if I add a return type. So we'll say, do the same thing we've been doing. For each one of the slots. This is where things get a little weird. We have a ships manager, which holds a reference to all the ships that we own. And we have a hangar slot, which we launch the ships from. Ooh, I bet that causes a null ref exception. I didn't think about that. Is my code broken right now, or can I go test this? If we go look at this hanger node, when we open it, hanger node, when we on enable, we say our hanger node is equal to whichever hanger node we should be touching. We get the ship for that node. If it's null, we should just turn the UI right off. Which means we should just be doing, instead, we should be saying UI manager.clear canvases. There is no ship at this node. Don't open UI. So let's go debug this. I'm going to bring this over to the other monitor so I can look at them both at the same time. Doing too many things at once. We'll come back to this. I got distracted, not going to lie. There were successful build errors. Would you like to... No, I'm good. Oh, I do have to finish this. Okay, so for each one of my mission slots in the UI, if we have a ship at that hangar node, so for ships manager, we have our list of ships, and our ship has its own hangar node. So what we should do is we should make these are private, so these are internal, so we'll move it up to the first empty public. So we'll say public static bool node has ship. So say instance dot ships dot where the hanger node is equal to the node that's passed in, and you are an IEnumerable, and we'll just grab the first one out of that list. There should never be more than one, but just in case. If, oops, if this thing, we actually shouldn't have to do this. If this is not equal to null, then we have one there. Otherwise, we return false. And so now, when we're populating, so now we have this active thing to work with. So what I think we want to do is, wrong button. There's two ways we can do it. We could use a getter setter, or we could use a property. I think I'll use a getter setter. So we actually, no. We'll do this. Get set. So when we get, we'll just return. So when we get it, we'll just return the value. When we set it, we'll say, where was I going with this? We need a reference to our image. Image. And then, so we'll say if the value that we're passing in is true, then our color is white. Otherwise, well, first we'll set is active equal to whatever value you passed in. Otherwise, slot image dot color equals color dot, I don't know, we just do gray. So when we set whether or not it's active, it'll automatically change the color for us. And now, when we try and drop something, we can do this handy dandy little thing that we already set up. Let's give her a go. Actually, you need a reference to your image, which is here. Okay, so I have a feeling I know what I did wrong. We will go to here. We'll attach. I have a feeling that's because of that link expression that I wrote. The null isn't going to be correct. So we're going to go into this breakpoint. Node is 1. We do have one for hanger node 1, that makes sense. We shouldn't have one for hanger node 2. So we should hit this breakpoint next time. So we have 2 ships. We have our starter ship, which is at hanger node none. Interesting. And we have our second ship, which is at hanger node none as well. So we should probably set this equal to something so that I can check what the value is. I just didn't want to have to instantiate a variable.
Hey, I got a question for you. What?
What?
Well, you know when the player kind of sticks on stuff and like won't move away from, say, the door. What is causing that?
Not a clue. I never use the built-in physics. I always hand roll my own. So we'd have to go. We'd have to go check. I'd have to go do some debugging with you.
Oh, okay, all right. I'll poke around. I just was wondering if you guys. I didn't know if it was an artifact of a behavior that wasn't completely set up or something like that.
There are several reasons why it could be, and
Uh-huh.
I'm not sure which one it is. I'll have to go.
Okay.
Pokey poke.
Okay.
Yeah, we're good to go. Okay, so now all we have to do. I'll be done with this in just a sec. Is in our scriptable objects, we have to say our first ship, our starter ship, is at hangar node 1. Which has me curious then, why did it auto-populate into here? So in our ships manager, when we init, we get all the hangar slots, we update the hangar ships. We actually aren't using this yet. We update all of them. And so we clear all the slots, which for each one of them, if we have a child, we're deleting it. That makes sense. I'll close out all the other functions I'm not using. So we clear the slots for each one of our ships. If we own it, we get the ship slot, we instantiating it, setting our parent to the correct ship slot. So this is the function that has to be wrong. For each one of the slots in our slots, if the node is equal to the hanger node, that would be because in the hanger ship slots are set to none. Haha, genius. So you should be set to 1, 2. Oh, it's behaving funky because I remember how I put none at the beginning of this enum, so everything got shifted to the front. Okay, so now the first node should be open. I can't drop it into any of the others, but I can drop it into here. I can let it go. If I drop it in here, I leave and I come back. It's still in there. Okay, so now it's technically scheduled. So now if we go look at our mission, it is scheduled in hangar slot 1. So when I go to launch, we're not going to talk about it? What in the world? Why are you editing the X, Y, and Z? We'll come back to it. It could be worse. So we'll say fix terminal scheduling duplicates. Oh, actually, let's fix also the duplicates. So we can't missions UI. If the slot's active and there's no mission set to that slot yet, right? Actually, we're replacing it. So we set, if we find the slot, we set our transform. We set our parent there. So we need to check replace mission. Private. So if, and we actually need to pass in the slot to check. If the slot dot slot transform dot child count is greater than 0, then we do need to replace the children. Which means we need to slot dot slot transform dot get child at 0 dot get component, and the component we want will be mission UI item. And then we will actually add a public void unschedule function. So that way, mission to unschedule. If we did indeed find one, we unschedule it, which should do this. And we can actually cheat a little bit. So if we go to accept the second mission, and there are 2 now, and we drop this guy, Oh, we're a genius. Okay, Chris, I have finished my train of thought.
Cool. Cool.
I will take a look at the getting stuck in walls in just a sec.
Well, the reason I that was brought back to mind, like when I put in the script to, like, when the player falls below the floor, to just basically transport them back to the origin. Then they can't move. It's like they're stuck to the floor. That effect is happening as well.
So what's interesting is I can't seem to get stuck in anything else.
Yeah, it's just the doors. Yeah.
I mean, now that they move, I can't get stuck in them anymore either.
Right. Yeah.
Okay, let's do this. On the
You see,
door, I'm curious. On the doors, if we
I
go,
can still get stuck on the door if I walk in and walk right and collide with the door. Then I can get stuck.
okay,
And that was the way. That was that way before the doors moved. Like if you go in, then go right, then yeah. Yeah. There you go.
I know why. I think I know why.
Okay.
In the prefab's office door, for the mesh that is generated, make it convex.
Okay. What will that do?
Make me a goddamn genius. So mesh colliders.
Uh-huh.
You can see if I turn on the physics debug,
Okay.
it doesn't do anything. Dope, dope, dope. So what the mesh collider tries to do is it tries to read the mesh data, right, and tries to
Okay.
generate a collider around it.
Right.
Well, what I'm assuming is there's some triangle that, like, you're allowed to walk over that triangle, and when you try and back out, it doesn't let you, right? So
Okay.
it's kind of like you're
Gotcha.
getting caught by a fish hook, right?
Right.
So
Yeah.
if you set it to convex, it makes the it lets you not have those fish hook type things, right? It makes it big so you
Gotcha.
can't get stuck in the middle of it. So it basically turned into a box collider for us, right?
Okay. Okay. So, okay.
So
Cool.
why does it let you get stuck on the floor when you respawn? Is going to be your second
Yeah. When
question.
Because I set it back to the exact origin. The
Uh,
8.5, 0.8 minus 10.
Set yourself a little bit above the ground. Try that.
Okay. Let me see that. Let me go into that script.
And we should probably, on all the objects, we should probably be going and setting their mesh collider to convex, except for you want me to
Right.
show this, but this will actually make a lot more sense. So if I
Okay.
go select the office here,
Yeah.
this guy, and I make his
Okay.
convex,
Yeah.
you notice it makes it a big cube around it, right? So it is
Right.
convex, right?
Right.
So we basically need to set the mesh to convex for everything except for the office, and that'll actually help with this guy. It'll make
Okay.
it so that I can't drop in these holes, I think.
Yeah, because I noticed. Yeah, you're able to drop into those holes, and let's see.
Yeah, doing the
Hang.
moonwalk in the air, baby.
That's right. That's right.
And then now these walls should block you. Okay, for the most part.
Yeah.
I don't like doing the convex here because I have a feeling we're gonna run into the same issue. What Joaquin should do is
Uh
basically
huh.
add a mesh, or he basically should make this
Right.
flat with something invisible, right?
Right.
Um,
Dang
or
it.
he should break these things up such that they can be made convex.
Right.
Like this, the office could have been made 4 separate cubes
Right.
for each of the walls that we could have made convex.
Right. Right. Yeah. Yeah. Gotcha.
I'm not sure what the preferred
Okay.
solution is.
Okay. Let's see what I got going on here. Oh no! Don't tell me it's gonna do this thing again. All right. Here we go.
I do think that is about all the brain power I have to be explaining things while also working on them tonight. So I will.
Yeah. No.
I'm talking to the YouTube channel
Oh.
that's
Okay.
watching me. I'm gonna
Okay.
stop the recording, but I'm probably gonna
Okay.
keep working. I just can't explain things anymore.
Okay.
So thanks for watching, everybody. Oh man, it's been 2.5 hours. Thanks for watching if you make it through all that.